Some of us are Isaiahs, and some of us are Jeremiahs. When we think of the prophet Isaiah, he is thought of as the greatest of the writing prophets. One thinks of strength, stability, solidness, lack of wavering in any way. When one thinks of Jeremiah, he's been justly given the name the weeping prophet. He is a person given to self-analysis and self-criticism, and was one who laid bare his deep struggles of his inmost being. He felt, and he felt deeply, sometimes causing great internal turmoil. Some of us are Isaiahs, and some of us are Jeremiahs. When it comes to dealing with change, some of us are like Isaiah and seem hardly fazed by it. Yet some of us are like Jeremiah, and in spite of a close walk with God, can deeply struggle with it. Too often from the pulpit we talk about trusting God, having greater faith in Him, and while true, these words have been spoken from an Isaiah perspective, so much so that those that are more like Jeremiah are, it seems, judged for their emotional ups and downs and struggles, and are not acknowledged for the special way in which God made them. This is a tendency I have, for I am more like an Isaiah personality, more easily teach from this perspective. And so when it comes to change, usually I'm not too fazed by it, and can navigate it fairly easily. But not everyone listening to this message is an Isaiah personality. Some of you are more like Jeremiah and significantly struggle with change, and potentially it can shake your faith. And there are times when even you and me who are the Isaiah personality type also struggle with change. And so one of my main purposes today in looking at this whole issue of struggling with change in the prophet Jeremiah is to validate your struggle and encourage you to bring your struggle to God. And hopefully this will help you to keep your bearings when the struggle with change gets so overwhelming. To set the context to the Jeremiah passage that we'll be looking at, let me first read the words of Jeremiah's calling from Jeremiah chapter 1, starting at verse 4. Here we will see the principle. You are you for a purpose. Jeremiah is recording here God coming to him and calling him to be a prophet. The word of the Lord came to me saying, Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Jeremiah was already a young man by the time God came to him, as recorded here. But God wanted Jeremiah to know that his call went back even further than his youth. Jeremiah existed in the mind and plan of God before he ever existed in his mother's womb. This information wasn't just to interest Jeremiah or to entertain him. It was given so that he would know God's will, be encouraged by that, and therefore align his will with God's revealed will. There are echoes here of David's words in Psalm 139, 13 and 16. For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. Some of us are Isaiahs, and some of us are Jeremiahs. Whether you are an Isaiah or a Jeremiah, even before you were born, you existed in the mind and plan of God, and He created you just the way you are for a purpose. Like Jeremiah, you too are to be encouraged by that, and therefore you should seek to align your will with God's revealed will for you. We may question God, do you really have a plan for me? And when we get a glimpse of His plan, We protest, saying we're not adequate for it. That is what Jeremiah did. In the next verses we will read that. Alas, sovereign Lord, I said, I do not know how to speak. I am too young. But the Lord said to me, do not say I am too young. You must go to everyone I send you to, and say whatever I command you. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you, and will rescue you, declares the Lord. Though Jeremiah questioned his calling, God promised to be with him and help him, and he promises the same to us. This principle of each of us being who we are for a purpose, and our need to walk forward into that purpose, trusting his presence and help in it, was driven home to me further about a month ago when I read Beatrice Wolf's book, Wolf Woman. Abandoned by her birth parents and then later by her adoptive mother, Beatrice learned to survive on the streets of Regina at age 13. Abusing drugs and alcohol gave her a way to flee, to forget the pain and rejection, sexual exploitation, and the abuse she suffered. But a deep love for her children caused her to cry out to her Creator and seek help. Beatrice began a journey of healing from abuse and addiction that controlled her, and discovered her identity as a Christian Indigenous woman. She writes, I believe there is a reason for everything. I believe that no matter what I went through, I have a story, and my story is like those of so many of my Indigenous brothers and sisters. It is a story of rejection and deceit. It is a story of abuse and shame. God uses my story, my compassion, and my strength to make my life 1,000,000 times better and bring hope to all who hear my story. What a beautiful concept, knowing God is using my broken past and healing. When I think of the horrible abuse and rejection that Beatrice Wolf went through, and now hear her testify, there is a reason for everything, and how God is using her broken past and healing for his glory. When I hear the words spoken to Jeremiah in Jeremiah 1, and those of David in Psalm 139, I am convinced even more so that God made you the way you are, and me the way I am, for a purpose. You are you for a purpose. And so whether you are an Isaiah or a Jeremiah, and the other uniquenesses of you, your family, personality, physical, mental, and social abilities and attributes, accept who you are and all that it encompasses, and seek to align your will with God's revealed will for you. You are you for a purpose. As we seek to walk in alignment with God's purpose for our lives, sometimes we can really struggle with the events and circumstances we encounter. And for some, if not many, the changes brought on by COVID-19 and others of life have been hard to handle. One of the clearest passages where Jeremiah expresses his struggle, even after having such a clear call by God, is found in Jeremiah 20. Here we are going to see that you need to be honest with God about your struggles. Look at how honest Jeremiah is with God, almost to the point that he is on the verge of being blasphemous. Look at Jeremiah 20, starting at verse 7. You deceived me, Lord, and I was deceived. You overpowered me and prevailed. I am ridiculed all day long. Everyone mocks me. Whenever I speak, I cry out proclaiming violence and destruction. So the word of the Lord has brought me insult and reproach all day long. But if I say, I will not mention his word or speak any more in his name, his word is in my heart like a fire shut up in my bones. I am weary of holding it in. Indeed, I cannot. I hear many whispering, terror on every side. Denounce him. Let's denounce him. All my friends are waiting for me to slip, saying, perhaps he will be deceived. Then we will prevail over him and take our revenge on him. Jeremiah looks back on the call and purpose that God had given him and accuses God of deceiving him, literally seducing him. Jeremiah was called to preach, compelled to speak, proclaiming violence and destruction and judgment on the people. But that resulted in ridicule and rejection, and being given the nickname Terror on Every Side. But if he wanted to keep quiet, he couldn't. He complains to God that he can't win either way. And as is often characteristic of someone who feels deeply, Jeremiah then shifts quickly from an emotional low to an emotional high. In this specific thought, he shifts into a hymn of praise and prayer for protection and vindication. He even re-quotes what God said to him in his initial calling. The Lord is with me, using it to bring peace to his heart. Look at Jeremiah 20:11-13. But the Lord is with me like a mighty warrior. So my persecutors will stumble and not prevail. They will fail and be thoroughly disgraced. Their dishonor will never be forgotten. Lord Almighty, you who examine the righteous and probe the heart and mind, let me see your vengeance on them, for to you I have committed my cause. Sing to the Lord, give praise to the Lord. He rescues the life of the needy from the hands of the wicked. But then in the next section, Jeremiah again sinks to the depths of despair as he reflects on the irreversibility of his divine call, verse 9, the betrayal of his friends, verse 10, the relentless pursuit of his enemies, verses 7 and 11, the negative and condemnatory nature of his message, verse 8. All have combined to bring to his lips again a startling expression of despondency and hopelessness. Let me read just 2 verses of this. Cursed be the day that I was born. May the day my mother bore me not be blessed. Why did I ever come out of the womb to see trouble and sorrow and to end my days in shame? These are the words expressing the feelings and wrestlings of a mighty prophet of God, one whom God spoke to so clearly and who followed him with uncompromising obedience. Some of us are Isaiahs and can steadily cling to God and his words to us and not struggle with the issues and changes around us. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Isaiah 40:10. Some of us are Jeremiahs and can really struggle with the circumstances that we are going through. If you are struggling with all the changes thrust upon you right now, take comfort and encouragement from Jeremiah. I've had some share with me in this past month or two of their struggle emotionally with all that is going on. And the fact that they were struggling was causing them to doubt the strength of their walks with God. But Jeremiah was a godly man, yet struggled with all that was going on around him and in turn inside him. Some of us are Isaiahs, and some of us are Jeremiahs. What did Jeremiah do with his struggles? There is no indication that the doubts and agonies of Jeremiah's soul were expressed publicly. He took them to God and poured out his emotional highs and lows before him. He was honest with God about his struggles. My encouragement to you today is that if you are struggling with all the changes and issues right now, be brutally honest with God about all that you are feeling. God didn't wipe Jeremiah off the map for his frank, almost blasphemous expressions of what he felt. God is big enough to handle that. And he made you the way you are for a purpose. Practically speaking, many find it helpful to share their struggles with a trusted Christian friend or a pastor so that others may be praying for them. May I encourage you to do that also, to share what you're wrestling with someone else. One final comment from this passage. I love that phrase in verse 9 where Jeremiah says that God's word is in his heart like a fire in his bones that he cannot contain even if he tries to. Oh, may God and his word be such in each of our hearts and lives, a fire in our bones that shines out from us, whether we are in Isaiah or at Jeremiah. As Ray Palmer prayed, I pray now. May thy rich grace impart strength to my fainting heart, my zeal inspire. As thou hast died for me, O may my love to thee pure, warm, and changeless be, a living fire. While life's dark maze I tread, and griefs around me spread, be thou my guide. Bid darkness turn to day, wipe sorrow's tears away, nor let me ever stray from thee aside.